Super Seicento is back for 2018. It might be the first episode of the year, but I think it's already time for a break. Hello YouTube, Miller Connor here and welcome back to Super Seicento. That's right, the series that turns this awesome little car into an absolute beast is back for 2018. And this year, more than ever, we are going to concentrate on the performance mods. But before we get too far into going faster, we need to know that we can stop better. So the very first mod we're going to do this year is putting on some awesome and massively uprated front brakes.
We'll be using front calipers from a Fiat Punto GT Turbo, painted yellow for the extra horsepower. Although others will work, it's a common swap to fit these as they're a substantial upgrade over standard and apparently they bolt straight on. You'll also need the Punto caliper carriers as the stock Seicento ones won't work with these. If you're buying the calipers second hand, try to get them with the carriers or you will, like I did, discover quite what a pain in the arse it is to source these separately. We're also using Punto GT discs, which are two-piece ventilated ones as opposed to the solid single-piece Seicento ones, and they're 257mm over the stock 240. These M-Tech Performance ones are also drilled and grooved for extra cooling and braking force. The final piece to the puzzle are EBC Green Stuff brake pads. EBC is a trusted performance brake manufacturer and these Green Stuff pads are said to be 25% better than stock pads, which makes them perfect for my front brake upgrade. With everything gathered, we start by securing the car on the ramp, lifting it up and removing the front wheels. The whole procedure is the same for both sides, but we'll only be showing you this side because there's no need to watch us do it twice. First, we clamp the hose down with a hose clamp to minimise brake fluid spillage and then use a spanner to crack the nut holding the hose onto the stock caliper. Next, the bolts holding the caliper carrier combo onto the hub are undone and the whole assembly is removed. Then the bolts that hold the brake disc onto the hub are undone and the old brake disc can be taken off. Seeing how much bigger the new disc is will give you some idea as to why I needed to put the bigger wheels on, because the smaller ones simply wouldn't fit over these bigger brakes. The new one is 17mm larger than stock, ventilated, grooved and drilled, all of which will significantly improve my braking ability. The hub is then cleaned with brake cleaner to give the new disc the best possible surface to sit on. It's worth mentioning you shouldn't breathe it in if you can avoid it, and then the new discs also get cleaned with brake cleaner. Brand new brake discs usually have oil on them to prevent them rusting, but this needs to be completely removed before fitting, otherwise you'll have oil on your brakes, and I don't need to tell you why that would be a bad thing. With copper grease smeared over the edge of the hub to make it easier to remove the discs later, which for some reason wasn't caught on camera, the new disc can then go on, and being that Seicentos and Puntos share the same 4x98 stud pattern, fitting the new disc and securing it with the original bolt is easy and simple. Next, the new caliper carrier can be slid over the disc and bolted into place on the hub, and again, because all the holes are in exactly the same place, it's literally a straight swap. The sliders in the carriers can then be lubricated with special caliper lube that comes with the EBC pads to ensure the motion is well lubricated and smooth consistently. We then went to test fit the pads into the carriers, only to discover that they don't quite fit. It's common for EBC to slightly overpaint their pads, which make them a little bit too thick to fit in sometimes. So it's over to the file to grind off a couple of millimetres of paint from both sides of each of the pads. It's worth mentioning that I'm not doing this because I probably hurt myself. And if you are going to do this, take all safety precautions and for God's sake turn the file off when you're finished with it. Next, it's time for a classic Super Seicento "we've lost a spanner" moment. Spanner found, the brake hose can be removed from the old caliper and screwed into the new one. Our file down pads are then copper greased on the edges to prevent squeaking and allow them to move easier, and then slid into the carrier, in which they now fit perfectly. The new caliper is then slotted into the carrier, bolted down, the hose tightened in place on the caliper, and with everything completed on both sides, our front brake upgrade is done. Then it's time to bleed the brakes, which begins with a hose connected to this bottle being connected to the bleed nipple on the caliper, and then an air line being connected to the bottle itself, which gradually sucks all the old brake fluid out of the lines and into the bottle. With most of the fluid drained out, I then go up in the car to pump the pedal in and out when told to by my dad to get the last of the old fluid out of the system. Meanwhile, my dad's on the ground pouring the new fluid into the brake reservoir and gradually bleeding it through the entire system. You need a clear flow of the new fluid out of the hose, with none of the old stuff in the mix and absolutely no gaps or bubbles caused by by air, because this will make your brakes significantly weaker and less responsive. Once you've got a clear flow of new fluid from each caliper, you've successfully bled your new brakes, and with the car lowered down and the wheels back on, the Punto GT front brake upgrade is done.
So there we have it, an entire performance front brake upgrade completed in just an afternoon. And I'm going to be frank, this might well be the easiest performance mod you can do to your Seicento, because it's simply bolt on. There's nothing to customise, nothing to modify, nothing to alter. All you've got to do is take the old, crappy standard bits off and put the awesome, beefed up new bits on from a Punto GT Turbo, although other models will also fit. And I have to say, it's actually been really good fun to do, because those are the best mods to do in a kind of way. They're easy to fit, there's nothing too tricky about them, and they're extremely satisfying and fruitful when they are done. And if you take the time to buy some awesome grooved and drilled discs like I did, and also paint your calipers in a cool colour like yellow, they end up looking awesome as well. I am super excited to see what these brakes can do on the road after a few weeks of bedding in, and more importantly, the kind of power they're going to be holding back. But that's a story for another day, coming very soon, because there's plenty more Super Seicento awesomeness hitting your YouTube screens this year. So if you haven't already, make sure to click that subscribe button and also the bell icon so that you know as soon as there is more Super Seicento awesomeness being released. But for now, thanks for watching everybody, and have a brilliant rest of your day. See you soon, and have a good one.